Welcome to State of the State. I'm Darlene DeRezzo, and I'm in conversation with Michelle Camara. She is the Rhode Island Delegate of Women for Gun Rights, and Brenda Jacobs. She is Secretary and Lobbyist for the Rhode Island Rifle and Revolver Association. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having us here today.
Michelle and Brenda are here to talk about gun rights as women's rights. Very interesting. All right, so you brought a report from the Attorney General's office. Let's start with that.
Okay, so we had pushed for legislation for many years to try and get a detailed report of firearm charges that were brought through the state of Rhode Island, and finally the AG did give us a report. And I will say that it was a very vague report, so we've had to do a lot of homework on this. But what we did find is that although he claimed there were 799 cases from 2022, there were only 261 of them were actually committed in 2022. Most of them were brought forward from previous years. Some have taken as many as 10 years to go through the court system. Only 261 cases, only 54 have gone to court since 2022. 79% of them are still in litigation, so they have not had an outcome yet. What we found most alarming is that of 157 of 252 cases, total firearm charges that were dismissed. That means if they were picked up on another crime with firearm charges, 117 firearm charges were dismissed. That's 46% of the cases. The firearm charges were dropped. So if you had a drug case or a domestic case, for example, the gun charges were dropped and they pursued other means to bring the people to court. 46% pleaded nolo. And then with domestic violence, we were really surprised about the domestic violence because 72% of the cases were dismissed in total, and 63% of the firearm charges involved in domestic violence cases were dropped. Wow. So that means that they were used as plea bargaining tools. Rather than charging them for the crimes with the firearms, which would have added additional charges, they either plea bargained them out or they dismissed them outright. The other thing that we went through is we went and started name by name. We checked all 800 cases, 799 cases, and we found that the majority of these cases were committed by previously convicted felons. So, and some of them had like pages and pages of previous charges against them. And also that we found that in domestic violence as well, that it would start as a misdemeanor and then they would escalate to a felony because they kept letting them out time and time again. So, we found this report to be very disturbing when it comes to, the fact that we're always getting blamed for, the gun violence in this state, and now we know for a fact that it's not us, that it's the system. And in talking to a lot of police officers, it's very discouraging for them too, because they continuously, they know so many of these people and they just keep, arresting them again and again and again, but they all know at the end of the day they're just going to get a free ticket out of jail. So. The other thing we found is that a lot of some of the gun charges that were brought against people for first-time offenders that have never been arrested before in their life or for possession of a firearm, and those had harsher penalties than some of the more horrendous felony cases. So it pays to be a criminal in Rhode Island because you can just get your get out of jail free card, and that should be concerning to everybody.
Yeah. What do you think the message, or like how is that received? The domestic violence, from women who are victims of domestic violence, finding out that their perpetrators are, what's the percentage again?
The percentage is,
the likelihood of their perpetrators.
72% were dismissed, and 63% all the firearm charges were dismissed. Well, as instructors, Michelle and I, we've instructed a lot of women. We have a lot of free women's classes. And the major reason for these women wanting to get firearms and learn how to be safe and responsible is because they want to be able to protect themselves. And there's been numerous cases where we have actually trained women that were victims of domestic violence. And it's so amazing because I know Michelle will also attest to this, that you have a woman that walks in and she's a victim of domestic violence. She's very, quiet and a little nervous, a little unsure about why she's there, and by the end of the night, they're the ones that are like empowered, and we pray that they may never have to use a firearm in self-defense, but you know what? It gives them a certain self-confidence to know that now they can defend themselves, and that's why some of these laws are so dangerous to women like that.
Yeah. So let's unpack that. Tell me more about that.
So one of the ones that I think, well, there's several that really affect, especially cases like domestic violence victims, and that would be the assault weapons ban. That's a deceitful bill, right from the death.
Have we defined assault weapon?
Well, it has to have a bayonet lug. It has to have a movable stock. It needs a flash suppressor, a forward hand grip. And it also includes pistols with magazine drops that have magazines that drop out. So when you're an instructor for women, a lot of these firearms that they have just haphazardly grouped into this category are guns that women like to use. They're safer for them. They're easier for them to handle. And a lot of all of these little things that they consider to be, make them assault weapons are actually safety features. Like a suppressor actually keeps when the bullet comes out and there's an explosion in the barrel that propels the bullet, that flash suppressor just keeps everything forward, so you're not getting, just the people beside you aren't getting, hit with any splash or anything. And the adjustable stock, I'm not the same size as Michelle. She has a smaller frame, so she'll move that stock forward so it'll fit her safely. I might move it back so it'll fit me safely. They say it's because they don't want to be able to conceal it. Well, that's not true, because that eliminates a lot of firearms for women. Even shotguns, a lot of shotguns today have adjustable butts. So, it's just more proof that these legislators don't understand, and they're not taking the time to educate themselves to understand the working components of a firearm and to actually know why, what these parts really do. Because when they see this legislation, they see money for their campaigns, they see information coming from organizations that are only anti-gun, and they only see crime. When we see these firearms, we see that, oh, that's perfect for teaching women. Oh, that's, excellent for competition. We see firearms in a whole different light than they do. And they're just not interested in being educated on these, and that's what's very disturbing about a lot of these legislators now, is that they refuse to be educated about the positive side of what these firearms are. The other one I'm very concerned about, and the one the biggest push is on for this year, is the safe storage bill. There again, you have a domestic violence survivor that is now legally going on a purchase of a firearm, taken all the safety courses, can safely handle that firearm. Now you're going to tell her that she has to lock it in a safe. It can't be loaded when it's in the safe. So now, don't you think that the perpetrator is going to know that? Like, that's seconds. Those seconds mean a lot when it comes to defending your life. Just like we just learned in East Greenwich a couple weeks ago with those 2 home invasions. Like that was seconds, and that's vital time. And now you want to hold us up defending ourselves. For more legislation that there hasn't been enough education done on it. So.
And that is going before the House on Wednesday?
And the Senate.
And the Senate.
Yeah, the Senate does have a mirror bill. That's on Tuesday. So now,
that's
again,
on Tuesday.
Oh yes,
Okay.
that's a ploy. So the firearm community right now has DEM hearings that are being held at the Cranston Library. That's for all the hunting regulations. And they have the Senate hearings have now been dropped on Friday for Tuesday hearings, and then Wednesday for House hearings. So they want to try and, divide us up because they know everybody can't get out of work 2 days or 2 days in a row and be 2 different places at once. So, but that's the way we're treated up there. We don't get to use Capitol TV as our personal public, address system. They do, and. We all work hard for a living, and we're trying to do the best that we can, but now this is what they do.
Michelle, how did you get involved with Women for Gun Rights?
Actually, I've been involved with the 2A community for almost 10 years now.
Yeah, tell us.
And I saw it somewhere, and probably Facebook, and I reached out to our state delegate, which is Renee Gagnon, who could not be here. And we teamed up and we started in May, and we had 4 members in May. And between actually volunteering, we did a Women on Target. A bunch of women on motorcycles drove in. It was the largest class of females teaching females at that point. And Renee and I volunteered, and we did that. And it was amazing, swapped names, numbers, and that was, I think, August, and here we are now 100 members in and growing. So in less than a year, we've gotten 100 members. I have my go-to women that I call in Rhode Island, such as I have Julie and Lisa and, some men behind the scenes, my friend Nick, they all help me. And we show up. And like she said, they try to get us Tuesday and Wednesday. We have kids, we have lives, we have jobs. So my point is, I will be there Tuesday. I will be there from 1 to, whenever, and I'll be a nuisance, smiling and saying hi. And that's what I do. And I have no problem with speaking to anybody in any community. I actually, I took a break last session, and the night of the mag ban, the red shirt mom decided to scream at a yellow shirt grandpa. He looked like Santa, and she's literally flailing and screaming, and then she comes over to me. I think you're all ridiculous. I'm like, oh, calm down. And she just really was passionate about how much she hated us. And then I said to her, well, come Monday morning, we're going to implicate this. You want a gun-free zone? Okay. Your pocketbook now has to be clear. Cannot go into school. Well, that doesn't make sense. I go, no, I can't see what's in your bag. She could not wrap her head around the common sense of it. And she got mad. She started screaming at me. So Danielle North, I think it was at the time, had to shut the feed down because she was screaming at the top of her lungs how stupid I was, because it didn't make sense. But if you work in a diamond mine like Ross Simons, you have to have a clear bag. She couldn't grasp it. So needless to say, they really don't want to hear the truth.
Right.
And there's many nights that we have sat there listening to them from other states that get bussed in. They shouldn't even be allowed to speak. In my opinion, they shouldn't be allowed to speak. They can show up. I mean, that's fine for me. But to speak on the behalf of what's going on in Rhode Island, they should have no say.
I think what sets the Women's Gun Rights Group apart from the Moms Demand Action, while we're on that subject, is that they're a true advocacy group.
Yes.
Because not only are they advocating, but they're also training. They're involved in the community. They're sponsoring programs. So I think that has a lot to do with advocacy. Where I think Moms Demand Action have moved more into an activist role, where they're up there, yelling and screaming and pushing all of this legislation. But at the end of the day, they're not working towards a solution. I know that you have on your card, they have a suicide prevention
This is
program.
Hold My Guns.
That's called Hold My Guns. They have
Faster Saves Lives, which is hardening school
yeah.
education, educating the kids and parents and anybody. Kids Safe Foundation. When Diane Muller created this in 2015, it was originally DC Project, Women for Gun Rights, and then that was only a federal. So now that we actually have a director in every single state across the country. And in October, they go to Washington.
Can you say something about the DC Project?
Well,
DC Project.
Now it's just Women for Gun Rights.
Now it is, okay.
Yeah.
Because it was just federal. You had to just, DC was the only place to get it. But now that we have 52 leaders, we can now, they switched it over to Women for Gun Rights. This is what we're here for. We're here to advocate and, keep safeguard for our Second Amendment rights. As women, they are women rights. The minute that somebody, my husband works in another state. He's in Mass, sometimes he's in New Hampshire. I'm by myself. You live on a busy, somebody broke into my vehicle at 1 o'clock in the afternoon in the middle of a school day. It happens, and they don't see it. They don't realize what times we are living in right now, especially the last month. It's been crazy. Just this morning there was an incident. Last week there's always something, and that's what we're here for. And not all of us are instructors, not all of us are RSOs. We're just moms who want to learn more. Okay. And that's why I got involved with them.
Yeah, it sounds like your organization is advocating and educating.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and that's what their motto is to legislate and educate.
Yep. Educate, not
education through legislation.
Yes.
Right.
Education to legislation.
Yeah, right.
Did I get that right?
Right. Yeah. So that and that's I think that's part of being a responsible advocate. You can't just come and scream about a problem. You have to come to the table with a solution too. And that's what this group is really strong about, and they've put a lot of work into that. And they also, you have a lot of women that are involved in this group that have actually experienced loss and have actually been victims of crimes, so they know from personal experience, and that's how this group got started. I think it was a concealed carry holder that had to leave her gun in a vehicle, brought her parents into a restaurant, but it was a gun-free zone, and they ended up getting killed while they were in the restaurant. Had she had her firearm on her, she probably would have been able to save them. So those are the types of people that were involved in developing this group and these programs. So it's a very good program.
Diane that started, she was actually a Tulsa police officer. And when she was going and seeing, wow, you don't know what this means, her legislators had no idea what they were signing. So that was the big push of educate, not legislate. We're nonpartisan, we're nonprofit, and how can you sign a bill if you don't, just hear the mag ban last year, 2 years ago, the magazine is not a working element of the gun. Well, yes, it is. And that's what they don't know. How can you not know that? So if you're going to do anything, first off, since the ghost gun with Jason Knight, everyone thinks they're made on 3D printers. No, they're not. There's no identifying marks. That's a ghost gun. That's all they know. It's easy to say, okay, it's a 3D printed gun. That's what they think. And we're here to educate. Listen, no. Ghost guns been around since Jesse James. They have no serial numbers. That's what they're here for. That's what we're here for. And the biggest thing I hear women say is, yeah, but I don't like guns. I said, well, you know what? You might not like them, but I don't like driving cars with standards, but I know how to drive one, because if I had to drive one, I'm getting out of a situation. Oh my gosh, I've had at least 1 out of every 10 women come to me afterwards and say, well, I want to see a free class. I never thought of it like that. You have to give them scenarios. A lot of people are like, no, no, no. And other people are like, well, I have pepper spray, or I have, it's not about that. It's not the same. It really isn't. And that's what we're here for.
Why do you think they reduced the mag capacity in Rhode Island?
Because, well, you know what? It's funny. I don't know why they put that limit on there. No one can answer us the question of 10.
Okay. Is it for safety reasons, or?
They say it's for safety reasons, but we don't believe that.
Okay.
For one, how can you put a number, if you have 2 people if you're up against 2 people and they have unlimited capacity because they're not following the law, why should my life be limited to just 10?
Okay.
That's one way I think about it. The second part, again, being an instructor, not all aftermarket magazines work properly in every firearm. And in fact, I have firearms that are now, you can't even get an aftermarket magazine for them.
What does that mean, aftermarket?
Aftermarket. So If I have a 17-round magazine for a firearm, I can no longer have that magazine because now I'm a felon. But on some firearms you can get an aftermarket that's made by a completely different company, doesn't know the mechanical specifics of the firearm, and a lot of times they're very, they don't operate properly with the firearm. They, more prone to jams.
And that may be unsafe. It sounds
right.
Okay.
It makes it more unsafe. So that magazine ban is just terrible for gun owners.
Okay. Do you know where that is now?
We just lost the TRO appeal, but it is still going forward in court. I do want to mention that the TRO, that when it first went to the judge here in Rhode Island, he is on the board of Rhode Island Nonviolence Institute. He also is on the board with Magazina at Crossroads, and he's also a huge donor to Cicilline. So we already knew where that was going to end up, because he really should have recused himself from that case but didn't. So again, and now in the when we lost the appeal, I was reading the brief, and it blows my mind that in that brief they actually referred to news reports as part of their legal standing. When they denied us, I can't even fathom that should be useful information to any case. They went against the Bruin decision too, by doing that. So, and again, we're not on a level playing field. And I'm bipartisan. I feel like our country has ebbed and flowed, through the years, and you have to go back and forth to have balance. And right now we are so unbalanced that all of this legislation that it just keeps being hammered on us every single year is proof to that. And it's proof that they do not want to listen to the people. They have specific agendas, and that's their focus. And that's money-based. Gun control is a huge business.
Gun reform, is it a lucrative business?
Oh, yes. We're talking about billions of dollars.
Do you know how much money comes into Rhode Island?
Over the past 10 years, about $13 million. And they always accuse us gun owners of finding loopholes to get firearms. Well, they have found loopholes in the campaign finance by using independent expenditures. So you have these nonprofits and agencies that are funneling money into what they call Rhode Island Values Project, and then they're paying for the campaign expenses for most of the sponsors of these bills. So, and then they don't have to report that on their campaign finance report. So I don't think that should be legal. I really don't, because that's not, again, that's not a fair playing field. And then I can prove they're not listening to the people. So last year's assault weapon ban. This is when we go in and you sign for and against, okay? So for the assault weapons ban, out of 585 people that went to the State House that day, 461 signed in against the bill. 124 signed up for the bill. So we outnumbered them. On the safe storage bill, out of 528 people, 442 were against it, 86 were for it. And the emails, because now the House puts the emails on the documents right on their website. There were 342 emails that came in. There was 368 that came in. 342 were against all of the gun bills. 26 were in favor. So we are the majority, even though they keep telling everybody we're not. And that's proof right there. We are following their rules, their system, and this right here proves it. But when you talk to a legislator that doesn't like us about this, it just falls on deaf ears. And that's disturbing, because our system is set up to be for the people.
For the people.
And when they blatantly keep ignoring the people, and now they also have all these coined terms: assault weapons, assault rifles. This year they want to call guns used in crime guns. They call us gun nuts. They have all these terms for us. And that's how we're treated. And that, to me, an unfair assessment of our community, because we are judges, we are lawyers, police officers, we are many blue-collar workers. You know, we have a lot of minorities. You know, we don't discriminate against anybody. And for them to keep coining these terms is nothing short of propaganda. It really isn't. But that's a strategy. It's a propaganda strategy, and it's one that they're really good at because they have all the money in the world to work on on us like this. And that, again, is not balanced.
Yeah. What do you think our audience needs to know about gun owners?
We're women. We are women.
Do we know what the percentage is, by the way, of men to women?
Well, it's the fastest growing demographic of new gun owners, 46%. In 2020, they did do a study on that, and 46% of new firearm owners were women. So that tells you a lot about how fast the women's dynamic, you know, is growing.
I just assisted on a class at Smithfield. It was 2 classes, actually. The second class was 2 men and 13 women, I think it was. So, and they love seeing women there because they think they can't, you know, they see other women, they're like, oh my God, you know, and they feel so much, and you know, there are men, they're great instructors, but they levitate towards it. You know, and they see somebody like me or somebody like Brenda or somebody like you. Oh, you know, one of the biggest questions during the COVID time that we did teach, we kept small classes, you know, the distancing, but we were outside ranges, which was great, was, do you shoot that gun? And I'm like, well, which one? And they said, you know, the one that's in the news, the assault weapon. And I was like, oh, you mean the AR? There is an AR out there, and that's not what it stands for. And I tell them what it means, and they're, oh, all this time, because they listen to what they hear. And then when they ask somebody who knows, they have a completely different perspective.
I just got the 3-minute mark. Okay.
Okay.
And I said, oh no, as Michelle was talking. Oh no, we have 3 minutes. So maybe we want to talk about gun owners and their value to Rhode Island, and actually how many millions of dollars actually come in from the sale of guns and ammunition accessories, and maybe how the change in the laws in recent years regarding age and purchasing ability. So I'm going to have you take over because we are running low on time.
Okay. So this state sells approximately 70,000 licenses for hunting permits, hunting licenses, permits, and stamps. That money goes into the Pittman-Robertson Fund, not federally, and then we get money matched × 3 back into the state of Rhode Island. The National Shooting Sports Foundation Economic Impact Study for 2022, $19,337 came into Rhode Island, and that goes to all of our parks, green space, safety, boat ramps, open land.
Bike paths?
Yeah. Bike
trails,
paths.
bike paths, okay.
Oh yeah, all of your public land. Okay. That's all that open space has been purchased with the Pittman-Robertson money. Wow. We also have about 770 employees that are employed in the state of Rhode Island, because we have a lot of manufacturers that actually make firearm components that are exported into other gun manufacturers within the United States.
Wow, I didn't know that.
And another hot topic, no pun intended, is fire. You know, our clubs have hundreds of acres, and all of us are involved in habitat restoration, conservation, and we've been working on fire roads, fire mitigation, and forest management, and also you know, trying to work with our local fire departments, making sure that they have access to our clubs and our ponds when they need it to help fight forest fires, because we know the state is so behind in maintaining their forests. So you know, there's a lot of value that we have that people don't even realize that you know, they should be thanking a gun owner when they're on their bike paths and, you know, go out on their boats and everything, because we're the ones who provided the money that has brought that to the state of Rhode Island. And you know, that goes back to our youth again too, getting them outside, getting them to enjoy the outdoors. You know, our clubs also open our clubs for youth development. And our clubs are also used for military and for police training. A lot of people don't realize that. So we help with everything.
Yeah, this has been so informative, and I wish we had more time. That flew by. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Brenda.
Thank you for having us.
You're very welcome. I'm Darlene DeRezzo. You've been watching State of the State. Thank you.